almost like a sniper with a rifle, waiting for that moment where everything comes into place. And then you're like, bang, I've got to get the shots. Because of technology as well, so we've got cameras which work better in low light. We've got cameras that autofocus faster. Otherwise, historically in an Indian wedding, if you've been to a wedding, the photographer will ask you to stop and look at the camera because his camera is not fast enough to capture that in low light. Then how is
I have a complaint with the wedding photographers. Why do you always take a photo when I'm eating biryani and butter chicken?
He took the roll out of the camera, he put it in a plastic bag and he hid it in the toilet water tank.
Oh, right.
Oh.
And then he had put another roll of film in his camera. When they came, they took out the roll of film. They said, this is gone.
Yeah.
And then he smuggled that film roll out after he left from the toilet tank and then he got out in the public. But then I think he won the award, but then he was so
Traumatized.
he killed himself after that.
The only president in the last 6 presidents of the US who didn't start a war was Donald Trump.
Yeah, I know.
So
Exactly.
we don't ever
More than
speak
6
about
also.
those.
Exactly.
Yeah,
We
probably
never
more than
speak
6.
about that.
When
It's
they see
insane,
this
yeah.
image, it caused like National Geographic made a whole 2-hour-long documentary
It
about
was,
this photograph.
Just anger, right? Like you can just, that's what.
It's a mix. It's like a Mona Lisa. It's like a modern Mona Lisa.
Yeah, it's important to look at yourself and the stories that you want to tell.
Yeah.
And that can be in your gully, in your house, wherever you are. And you can use any device around you to shoot. But just to open up your eyes and look at the world from the perspective of a storyteller and then use your camera or phone as a device to tell that story.
We live in this age where there's a lot of photos coming up to us, and nowadays everyone thinks they're a photographer. But now we have a chance to actually meet a professional photographer. We got Kishor Krishnamoorthi over here. Welcome to Snarky Devils, Kishor.
Hi, Surya. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Shiraz. Thank you for inviting me here.
Hi.
So Kishor, you made it very big in the field of photography. You are heavily into bridal photography, but you've also indulged in many different arts of it. Why did you get into this particular field, and has it been a lucrative move as well?
So I think that's a fairly long answer. I'll try to keep it as brief as possible.
Yeah.
I got into photography when we were at school at HPS Begumpet.
Yeah.
So I was the editor for the school newsletter. And that kind of allowed me to shoot a lot of things in school and carry this little camera around without people questioning me.
Okay.
So I think that gave me a lot of ability to be the official photographer and kind of shoot events and things around school. And that was my initial starting really way I could feel around photography.
Sure.
Then when I went to university in England to study economics and politics, so something completely different. But even at university, I had a job as a part-time photographer. I was the president of Photography Society. So always kind of kept going on.
So were you one of those guys like some 3 idiots says, Papa, mujhe photography karna hai.
I would say that was, my parents are always quite chill about it, but yeah. So I think, and then I never thought it would be a feasible career. This is back in 2008 and 9 when photography is
It's a good thing that like you knew what you wanted to do from a young age, man. Like it's not everybody is very lucky to have that.
I wouldn't say new because after I finished my degree, I did go into work in London as an oil trader for a year.
Oh, wow.
So I was trading crude oil on American markets for a year, and then I realized I can't sit in front of a system.
You left oil for photography.
Yeah, so this is back in 2012 and I was like, what do I do? So I came back to India for a break, I think, from London for about a couple of months because my dad's like, okay, just come for a while. And then, of course, I met Tarun and all these guys from, they were all doing creative stuff in Hyderabad. And at this point, creative work in Hyderabad was very nascent, or in India as well, because this is before even Instagram. Only Facebook is there. So at that point, they're like, oh, come, we'll do something. I'm like, okay, fine. And, kind of really took a leap of faith to...
I have a question. Like,
yes.
What was the first device you took a picture on?
First device you took, like a digital camera? Like, I've shot film cameras when I was very young.
Yeah.
So.
No, I mean, like, you said that you were editor for school. What did you use?
So there was this, these Sony cameras, used to be like this credit card size Sony camera. I just knew them. I think it was T33. It'll be like about this thick.
Right.
It'll be like the size of your palm.
Yeah.
And that used to fit in the front pocket of that school uniform quite conveniently.
Yeah.
That's what I shot with for that.
Nice.
Then I bought a little bit better one, and then so that's.
But you've seen that era of the film and
correct.
rolling
Yeah. I still use film now and then for some projects.
Why?
So I shot film for a web series recently, about a year ago, and then the web series is set in like the 60s and 70s, and they want to quite recreate that. So they said, why don't you try shooting the posters on film? So we shot on film, we got the film processed in Bombay and scanned, and then that was what was used for posters and hoardings across the city as well.
Wow, that's insane. Like, That's something that's unheard of.
It is.
Yeah.
Quite supportive director and producer.
You
don't
have
always
to go to that red room and dip the film
I don't have to do that. There's a guy who will do that. But I know how to do that. I've done that in England as well. I've learned how to develop film as well. It's a very tedious process. Because you have to have a dark room and that's not really, you can't really do that yourself.
But I think we're going a little ahead of ourselves. But why photography? Why this as a main
So I think, so I think when come back to that question, I think really photography allowed me to really preserve something in time forever. I suppose in some kind of way, I'm a guy that misses the past, and photography was kind of way of reliving memories of not just people but places and things like that as well. So I was like, whatever we're doing today, in 10 years we may forget about this, but then if you have a photograph of it, we'll remember it. And that's a very powerful thing to do as a photographer.
Yeah, I mean, memories are of course like you capture them with your photos, and they're always those iconic. And you're doing bridal photography, capturing the most important day.
Oh yeah, you are like the most important person for that couple.
Yeah, I mean, I think with wedding photography, it's a similar thing, right? Because I always said, especially in Indian weddings, it's not just the couple that comes; it's two families that come together, right? So I think very often people will come from all across the world, and that same group of people may never come together again.
Yeah.
I mean, for whatever reason. So that wedding becomes quite an important situation to capture all those memories and reactions and stuff like that together. So that's quite a really once in a lifetime thing, like you said. So.
And how fulfilling is it for you to, when you hand over the pictures and you get those accolades, how is it, how do you feel?
I think it's really quite, I think it feels really satisfying to have that positive feedback from the couple. And some couples, we've shot for them many years ago, and we continue to shoot events for them every year in their family when they have a kid and all that stuff. So we almost become part of the family over years because they're like
family doctor, family photographer.
Family photographer, yeah. Any event in the house,
I have a complaint with the wedding photographers. Why do you always take a photo when I'm eating biryani and butter chicken?
We don't do that personally.
Always, we just
they want to catch that candid shot of you.
I think Surya does that in front of the photographer and then complains about them perhaps also, right? But I think at least with the kind of work we do, we're not too focused on the food part of it.
Have you seen pictures of his wine event?
He's just like, he's waiting for the photographer at that point. Like, oh man, you caught me.
I don't eat in my wine dinners actually. But no, it's very interesting because you are a very important part of the weddings, and I'm sure you must have seen all different types of religions and different weddings. Like, what is that experience like? Is like a 3-day, 4-day process?
Yeah, so I think
a lot of mayhem, a lot of drama.
Inevitably, as much as we can plan, I think Indian weddings are quite chaotic, and a lot of times we have clients who are NRIs who come from abroad with a very strict plan. They come to Hyderabad, I'm like, okay, this is not going to happen the way we thought it'll happen, and so we end up being not just photographers, we almost like a shoulder for them to lean on, and then for them to
pick up this table.
We do a lot of work. Sometimes they're ranting. Sometimes the bride is ranting about the groom to us. The groom is ranting about the bride to us.
Oh,
and we all listen to all these. We're like all areas access pass. But we end up being much more important. And I think also for those few days we become a part of the family quite intimately.
Photographer / shrink.
But it also allows us.
Please do the wedding. I won't get paid.
No, I was also I think for us to get to know a family quite well allows us to capture moments.
Yes.
Rather than be this kind of, we kind of want to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
And after a while, you kind of predict if this is the bride that's going to cry or not, because you spend 3 days with them. And sometimes is the groom going to cry or the bride going to cry.
Yes.
And you kind of learn to become a psychologist almost.
But what is it about Indian Shaadis which is so different from... No, I've just came back from a wedding in Italy. And it's a very, it's just a one-day thing. Correct. And it's done very fast. Whereas Indian Shaadis is like a proper week long of celebrations. Like it's must be mayhem in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, I also just came back from a wedding in the Netherlands, which was about the wedding itself was about 1 hour, and then it was just a reception for many hours, of course. I think for us, of course, again, the wedding itself is quite short, the ceremony. But it's the other stuff we add on, right? You add this haldi, you add this mehendi and sangeet. I think some of them have traditional connotations. Like, haldi has some kind of thing about how you beautify the bride and groom before
Purifying
wedding.
yourself.
Yeah, so they have their own importance, and of course now they've evolved to kind of fun, and it's not really the tradition of it. But I think over a while, what also happens, I think sometimes people tend to invite different sets of people for different events. So you have week long, but then some friends will invite for some events, and some relatives invite for some events.
It's so tough though, like to do that, because everybody in, I don't know across India, but in Hyderabad, if I invite Surya and for one event I don't invite him for the second, you didn't invite me. What did I ever do to you? I'm like, yeah, nothing.
But there'll be a traditional event which Surya would not want to come to.
Yeah.
Whereas your
no,
aunt
but you
or
want to
someone
be invited. Like you don't want.
No, I don't want to come for the 6 a.m. puja.
Nobody gets invited to the 6 a.m. puja. Trust
people
me.
just turn up.
Except the photographers.
People who are partying from last night are just like lurking around.
That's for sure. That's for, no, but so we discussed about the wedding photography and all in general, but just to understand, a little bit of the technicalities, because you've seen film to digital.
Yeah.
What has been the changes so far? What is your favorite camera?
Okay,
Also
well,
to
so I
do-
think there's multiple questions to tackle.
Yeah.
I think so. I'll also kind of use this as an opportunity to talk about the rise of this candid wedding photography, which has happened over the past decade since we've got into it. So that I think primarily has been because of technology as well. So we've got cameras which work better in low light.
Yeah.
We've got cameras that autofocus faster. Otherwise, historically in an Indian wedding, if you've been to wedding, the photographer will ask you to stop and look at the camera because his camera is not fast enough to capture that in low light. But as technology has gone far, better, you're now able to capture stuff on the fly. Having said that, there are obviously photographers who still do the old school way of doing things.
Titanic pose.
But I mean, the technology has been a large part.
Sit on the lap. Yes.
So the technology has been a large part of how allowing photographers to experiment more.
Yeah.
And I think compared to film to digital, I think film definitely has its own charm. In film, you have different sizes of cameras as well. Basically, your small negatives, your 35 minutes, about that big. Then you've got 120, which is about much bigger. So it's called medium format. So you get much more resolution from that. So I like shooting with medium format cameras because with each roll of film, you can only shoot about 10 photos.
Right.
So it makes you be very, very deliberate about what you're going to shoot those 10 photos. So you really pause, you slow down, you think.
Because the guys with the digital cameras, they just go.
You can, right? Yeah.
2,000 pictures, choose one of them, and I don't think that's
But
much art.
that's a different. I think that's the evolution as well. Like you see our parents' wedding photos; they'll all be standing like this and looking at the camera.
Before there was nothing called candid
Yeah,
photos.
so, and
back
now
then.
everybody is saying ha 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 and ha 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 ha. That's all you're seeing like everywhere.
Correct.
Yeah, so it's a different evolution of pictures.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
everybody stood and took a picture at that point in time, and now it's
people
like,
used not smile back then because it used to take so long for that photo to complete. You can't be smiling throughout. So eventually
So you have morose
become like
expression,
that.
exactly.
So that's why in the
Because
black
again,
and
that's about light, right? So it's about
Yeah.
capturing in low light and things like that. So.
Yeah, so coming back to the point, so so still, is it like like you said, you like to work with 35mm film, and is that a conscious choice that you want to you don't want to?
For weddings, I shoot digital photography, of course.
Okay,
I shoot,
okay.
I think 120 film is something I use for personal projects,
Right,
where I can
right.
take the time to slow down and compose something. That's the same film I use for those web series I was talking about as well.
Sure.
Because I think as a photographer, you always learn a lot shooting film because film is not forgiving.
Right.
Digital is very forgiving. You take a bad photo, you review on your screen, you're
done.
Yeah. But film, you don't know what you shot
Exactly.
until like a week later.
Yeah.
Then like, oh damn, the exposure on that is too slow. So.
So what all goes in your head when you're taking a photo? Lighting is one.
Yeah, lighting. So I think it depends upon the genre as well. I think with weddings, a lot of it is expression. Because expressions change in the blink of a second and you have to be ready. It's almost, I always equate us in a very weird way, but it's like, you're almost like a sniper with a rifle waiting for that moment where everything comes into place. Wow. And then you're like, bang, I've got to get the shot. So, because especially, it is a very high emotional event, a wedding, especially for the bride and groom, right? I mean, and at that point, they forget about everything else around them. They're just focused on one thing. And then you have to be able to get that emotion because a lot of times you won't remember your wedding day until you see the photos. Because you're like in this adrenaline rush at that time. It all goes by in a blur. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I did this that day. And I kind of experience it. So that's an important part of our service as well. So
it's hilarious that I lost my wedding pen drive. So,
Really?
so I have no wedding pictures.
It's not even on
No.
On a cloud, or
No.
does the photographer not have a backup?
Oh.
You know, we have hard disks that are backed up every wedding we shoot. So
That's
just
insane, yeah.
shameless plug over there. So,
Yeah. So basically, I
do it
got
again now.
married in Bombay, and my wife got the photographer,
Uh-huh.
and then he gave us the pictures, like he gave us the master.
Right. Oh,
pen
wow.
drive
Okay.
To kind of pick the pictures, and we were doing that, and I lost it one day. And my wife is very angry. It took her a year to forgive me. She still hasn't.
I wouldn't say she would never forgive you. I
Yeah,
would say.
she's not. Yeah, so I kind of don't know what I did at my wedding.
But you see what I mean? That the photographs will help you.
Yeah.
No, but like
100%.
also like drones have now suddenly gotten into this field, and
yeah.
that's also you need a drone wala now. as well.
I mean, I half the time I say a drone is just a little bit of fancy thing people want to have.
But
at
it's
the
very
wedding.
cool. You're getting that angle which
So
you could not get before.
I mean, it is okay for
Surya
about
is
2-3
very fancy.
No, it's okay for about 2-3 photos. You can show a view of the venue.
Yeah.
Maybe you can show a view of the crowd.
Yeah.
But you're not going to fly it into like the mandap and like swirl around to people's
Yeah.
faces, right? So
That's
it
going
has
to
a-
kill someone. It's just going to flash some faces at the mandap.
And I think a lot of times people just get because like, oh look, drone.
Drone,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
And that's a fancy
That's
thing.
all it is. That's all it is. Yeah.
I mean, historically, you saw these cranes. I don't know if you see. I say historically, but like I see these massive cranes used to go around making a huge nuisance.
But you were saying favorite camera, favorite brand. Let's just
Oh,
say.
I mean, so I've used Canon as a
Canon.
brand, yeah. But I've been shooting Canon since 2007. So it's about 15 years I've been loyal to that brand.
And then like Kodak, Nikon, or
Kodak doesn't make digital cameras anymore. So Nikon and Sony are probably the main competitors. So I think again, so because of me sticking with Canon, one of the advantages you use same lenses. So with digital cameras, you always say your lens is an investment, your camera body is an expense. Because you can use the same lens for 15 years, but you have to keep changing the camera as technology changes.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So I do have Canon lenses which I was using in 2007. They still operate perfectly fine. But the camera body would get outdated because you have new sensors.
I mean, explain to us laymen, why would you need different lenses? Yeah,
Right.
why would you need?
So I think you have something called focal length, which is basically
Right.
you have a wide angle or a telephoto lens.
Sure.
So wide angle lens is something you'd use for landscape use.
Yeah.
You know, you want a lot of the landscape to come in, and then you're shooting wildlife or sports.
Yeah.
You want a very long, those big white lenses you see at telephoto
Yeah.
lenses. So it's very specific on what purpose you have.
Yeah.
I think with our point and shoot cameras, you have something called a zoom, which is like an all-in-one, right? You
Yeah,
zoom
sure.
from 10x and all that.
Yeah.
But when you move to a digital SLR, you kind of want to have different lenses for different purposes. So they're really good at that. So rather than one that is kind of compromising on multiple things.
But I've been seeing a few videos where OG photographers are nowadays switching to the iPhone
Right.
to take some
Yeah,
photos
yeah.
because almost as good. Like, how is that? Like, would you ever risk it?
Well, I mean, I when I travel, I use my phone for a lot of Insta stories because it's easy. I don't want to lug my camera
What
around.
phone
But
do
how
you
good are
use?
the cameras nowadays on phones? It's
That's
pretty.
a one question.
Okay, sorry. What phone? Both. That's
What
it.
phone do you use?
Samsung S22 Galaxy. S22.
Okay, so that you think that's better than the iPhone for sure.
Yeah. I think it's just the
you
Apple
not be
ecosystem.
sad about it. It's, it's
I
your
think
opinion and
it's
your
like-
choice. He can boo you all he wants.
I think the Apple ecosystem is great for people who own everything Apple, but I'm like, I want my freedom. And I like Android as an operating system and
Right.
the freedom. So I've been using Android for quite a while, and Samsung, the top end, are always very good in terms of their cameras.
Okay, so there you go, guys. Buy Samsung.
If you're into photography. But I do, whenever I see,
See, he has to put that in. If you are into photography,
because it's like a BJP document. No, but whenever I see a video of on an Android on Instagram, you can see that little bit of that lag. It's not that smoothness.
Freedom is,
Whereas Apple is very, very smooth.
But see,
in a
problem-
video.
The problem with Android is there's so many bad Android phone cameras as well, right? So you can't equate Android to an iPhone because you'll have terrible Android
Yeah,
phone
exactly.
cameras. Whereas S22 is the flagship of the Samsung.
S22.
Yeah, which could be equivalent to like an Apple iPhone 13 or 14 basically. So I always try to buy the best one because it gives the best output. If you buy the lower ones, you keep changing every year and it's going to be
obviously,
bad. So,
But like just now the iPhone 14 has come out. And every time Apple doesn't change anything on the phone, they just make the camera a little bit better.
Correct.
But would you ever risk doing like a shoot with that nowadays? Do you think we're going to reach a stage where you don't need massive cameras,
So I think
DSLRs?
there's two parts of it. One thing, I think there's definitely the physics of it. So a digital SLR has a much larger sensor compared to a phone camera.
Of course.
So what you're going to resolve from that is going to be always much better than the smaller sensor, just physics of it. And then there's also the speed of it in terms of what you capture, like the latest
But
cameras
it's so
we have.
bulky, it's so expensive.
But if
The
you
quality
use
of the
one- I mean,
photo,
yeah,
of course.
Once you use one, you see the speed of it is blazing fast, and your phone like boom, boom, and then it's just so slow. So I think there's a lot of things that can do so well.
Yeah.
When you use your phone, like wow, this is actually really bad as a camera. So, but then when you're in a situation where it's very controlled, where you can have time, you can probably use that and be.
I'm just going to try to explain it to Surya in a way that he can understand
I
it.
did understand it. Okay.
But why would you drink a Sula Chardonnay when you have very aged wine that
Bordeaux wine.
Bordeaux, yeah, that's the difference. It's wine, it gets you high, right? Like, yeah,
Of course.
that's also you can say something like that as well.
Understandable.
I
but
tell people like I think who are not serious photographers
Yeah,
to use phones
exactly.
because I think people will not, if you travel, you're not going to take a camera out of your bag, shoot a photo, and then there's too much of barriers in way.
Yeah,
sure.
Whereas a phone, you take it quickly, and then it's all backed up to the cloud as well.
It's comfort, and
Yeah.
that's what people are looking for nowadays.
But
So it's
phone-wise, we've come a long way from 2 megapixel, 3
Phenomenal
megapixel
way.
to where
Yeah,
the hell are we now? It's,
I think the megapixel count is also not what's important. It's also just the quality of the images you get, like in terms of how much they've crammed. Just the quality of the lens,
Yes.
sensor into that time, it's phenomenal. I mean, it's really good. So
yeah. And like new things coming out, like the gimbal we were just talking about.
Yeah.
and
yeah,
all these.
and now I think the latest iPhone and even the Samsung has like a built-in digital image stabilization,
Yes.
which almost makes the gimbal redundant. Suddenly,
Yeah,
you're like, oh wow,
exactly.
it's, So I mean, it's not fully redundant, but
Yeah,
these are
it is
technological
a
changes.
lot. It's changed a lot
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's like independent. It's in a independent chassis or something,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
it moves around. The lens moves around. Plus you have digital,
yeah.
and then you're running, and it doesn't feel like you're running with the camera. It's insane. So
And it's all in that tiny device. It's
yeah,
not-
yeah. I mean, technology is killing it.
Yeah.
Do you feel that when you click this really superb picture, right? Like, and you've put the kind of effort as a photographer. I mean, as a layman, it doesn't matter because I don't have the eye to kind of tell, okay, this is a good picture, whereas this picture has a lot of effort in it. So you see these new cameras and technology coming up, and then a random third person, do you think that they can also click some sort of picture? They need to have the expertise that you have. Like,
with the camera, you're saying, or just generally you're saying?
generally, like with this new technology, like everybody's walking around and you are going there with like your equipment, and then you are clicking one picture that you're putting so much effort into it. And is technology making it obsolete, or?
So I think actually that's a very good question. And what I'll
Yeah.
probably say is that's generally something about photography overall, regardless of technology. I think it's just that taking one good photograph can happen often by fluke.
Yeah.
But taking consistently photographs that are very good over time
Yes.
is not going to happen that way.
Right.
So there could be a certain point of time you're in Stonehenge, I'm in Stonehenge, you get a great shot, I get a great shot,
Yeah.
and your shot is 80% as good as mine.
Yeah.
But then you move on with life.
Yeah.
But I'm going to spend more time there going around clicking multiple photos of it
Right.
and create much better series. So it's not just the camera, it's also the thought process
Yeah.
as a photographer that
Effort
you're going to
as well.
have. To weave a storyline
Yeah.
through multiple images where there's like, oh, pretty sunrise and birds coming through, and which is a different thing. So
Of course, yeah.
But it's also like the fact that until 2002 or 3, like when Nokia came up with the 7610 or 7650, which is the first 50, which had the first camera phone. Now everyone's a photographer.
Correct.
Because now everyone, even the most cheapest phone has the camera
Yeah,
on
absolutely,
it.
yeah.
And now everyone's kind of has their own way of
Not-
shooting, but like everyone's an amateur photographer in some way or
Not
the
only,
other.
not only that, but like everybody's using an iPhone or like a Samsung or whatever, the camera phone, to be an influencer. They don't need anything else. Like
Yeah.
they don't need like a setup. They don't need like, people are not thinking. It's just like on the go.
Yeah.
We're just standing up and they are taking a phone. They have it and
Yeah.
they have like a selfie stick,
Yep.
and they're just recording.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's getting 1 million hits.
Yeah.
It's getting 2 million hits. People
Yeah.
are dancing on the street,
Yeah.
and it gets 2 million hits. So how is I don't know. I mean, like, where does it end? Like, do you feel like?
So I think there's two different questions you
Yeah.
asked. I'll tackle yours first because yours.
Yeah.
So I think one part you've said is that the camera is only a means to an end at that point.
Yes,
What
yeah.
is becoming popular is their act. And the fact that the camera is now affordable has democratized
as
them being an influencer. So their personality and them dancing, whatever
Yeah.
activity they may do, is suddenly visible to hundreds and thousands of people across the globe through two things. One is the camera and also the medium of social media.
Sure.
Both of which were non-existent many years
Before,
ago. So I
yeah,
think
yeah.
That's a great thing. I think it's really good that someone who probably would have never had the ability to connect with someone on the other side of the globe.
Yeah.
I mean, the people who watch, I think, very niche topics. Someone will watch some origami videos and they have like hundreds of thousands of views. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think that's a great thing. And I'll come to his question now.
Please,
But everyone's a photographer.
Everyone's a photographer. Like, for example, Instagram was offshoot just for people, professional photographers, to say Facebook's become too crowded with all sorts of things. We just want to talk about photos. And that's why Instagram in the beginning was just very strict, saying, we are just going to put photos and nothing else. And now today we have everything, real
now
videos.
Now notes, this new thing.
Unfortunately, yeah. But do you sometimes feel difficult to justify yourself, like you're still amateur, we're the professionals in some way, or you're just welcoming?
I think it's like everyone has access to a laptop and Microsoft Word, but you're not writing novels, are you? So having access to the equipment doesn't mean you're definitely going to be a professional at it. And I think it's good because I think in some way everyone tries it, and a lot of people also realize that it's actually quite difficult.
Holding a bat doesn't make you Sachin Tendulkar.
Yeah.
It's like when people say, "Oh, you're a really good photographer. What camera do you use?" I'm like, "Oh, the food is really good. What stuff did you use?"
But if there's, what are the different types of photography? If you can enlighten us, like this.
That's a huge
like there's
topic,
food photography, which is a little different. There's sports. There's wildlife, and
I mean, you could go with portraiture. You've got like fashion photography, then you've got like documentary photography, then you have street photography.
You've got paparazzis. Have you ever been involved in that paparazzi?
I have not been involved in that level.
But what do you think of those guys? Are they a little bit trained, or they just go take a camera and take?
I think it's very different. Again, Indian paparazzis versus paparazzis in other country. But I think for them, it's more of they look at it as just a way and means to make a living, I suppose. There's like, here's a camera, here's a flash, and they'll operate it in the way that they have to capture these people. For them, again, the camera is a means to an end.
Here's a camera, here's a flash, and let's invade people's privacy.
That's it. Yeah, for them, they could do the phone as well, right? So I think the camera by itself is only providing them a tool to achieve their means, which is like, let us go and because I think there's photos historically of people on these private islands, people who take boats and yachts, these telephoto lenses and do all this stuff.
Exactly, they're hiding in the thing.
Which is great. So I think that is I don't know.
it's the individual.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you had to give us layman's advice on how to take a better photo, what would it be?
See, it depends on what situation you're asking. Are you it's a photo?
A candid photo. Of course, lighting and all. I know it's a very broad question.
It's a very broad topic. Right?
No, but I'll tell you, for example, I'm telling you why I'm asking this question. For example, I take a selfie like this, and my wife's like, no, you should not take downwards. You should take upwards because, okay. And then there's sometimes, you're taking it wrong. It has to be from side angle. The light has to be, again, not behind the light. There are a lot of these small little errors which I don't know about.
Correct. Like I think if you're talking about portraits, you always want to make sure the light is in front of you, not behind you. So sometimes the sun as well, right? So if you're outside, the sun is behind you, you're going to be a silhouette. Okay. I think especially the problem happens when people go to Goa and they want photos at sunset by the beach. And unless you use some light in front
of you. Or they're holding the sun.
But you'll still be a silhouette.
Exactly.
So I think that's basic rules of lighting.
So that's a big no-no.
Again, see, you can obviously break that rule if you creatively know why you're doing it for a certain idea. But otherwise, if you want a portrait of your family, and they're standing there like, there'll just be like 4 black structures and like, that's my father, my mother and my one. So I think that's one thing, try to have the light in front of you, I would say, in terms of just portraits and lighting.
Angle should always be more up.
I would say eye level is better.
Those are selfies.
Selfies.
I think we're going to different with
but
that.
Surya wants to know how to take better selfies.
I don't take selfies that much, but majority of the selfie culture is, I believe the word selfie was coined in 2008 by some Australian runner. Because in Australia everything they ended with E, like that. It's whatever. So anyway, so selfie just kind of started, and how it just exploded. Of self-expression basically.
And I think that the front camera of a phone, I think, is sometimes more used than the back camera. Probably
way more.
If you think, I mean, like
your video calling. So
like if you didn't think the concept of front camera, like maybe 10 years ago, like why do you need a front camera? You think of
I mean, at that point when we had these, I think we were in the transition of the phase where we were just growing up when phones were coming out, and it was just like a novelty to first think that you have a phone that you can walk around with, before it used to be, hello auntie, can I please talk to Shiraz? And you would wait up, I don't know, is my girlfriend going to call me today or no, because you can't call her house. So,
pick up the phone, the Wi-Fi is off. So okay.
But that's the thing, like, so it's evolved so much more
than a phone. It's way more than
it's just not a phone anymore. It's not even a camera, it's a lifestyle. I feel like, like people are making money off it constantly. Like not only photography but everything else, like your personality has come through on it. Everything is digital now. The other day we had this guy who was explaining to us about crypto, and it was the first time I kind of understood what crypto was. Like before I was like, what is this? So everything is so digital, and do you think that, like, you constantly have to keep upgrading your like you said, like how often do you upgrade? Like,
so we upgrade our cameras about once every 3-4 years. I think usually when Canon releases a new model, we kind of go with the flow of Canon pushing out the new models, which is about 3 to 4 years. Sometimes it's a little shorter, a little longer.
Okay.
But that's again the body. Yeah. So the lenses again stay for a little longer than that, significantly longer. So I think that's just...
So photography, the most important part of history is captured through the lens, and thank God for photography in this last 150 years of it being present. That they've captured some amazing historic moments. So we've been able to share a few photographs of what we want to talk about as well. So what we're doing as the first Snarky Devil first is I've got an iPad over here, and we're just going to talk. We'll post these photos on the screen as well. But here we've got a very interesting image of a sailor kissing a girl. Can you tell a little bit of the history of what is this basically?
So this is the parade after the war. But, I mean, the thing is, this photo was quite iconic, but later it became known that the girl had no consent when she was kissed.
Yes. So it's an absolute random girl.
Yeah, he grabbed a random girl and kissed her, and somehow it was captured and became very iconic.
First captured event of Me Too.
But
no, but the point is, it was such euphoria of this moment that a girl was open to kiss. You're a person who fought in the war. You're a hero. So I don't mind.
Yeah, but I think it was a little bit more forced as well, because we see his body language as
you
well.
You were not the girl. So
I don't think she was given much choice in that situation.
I like to believe that they got married.
And
I mean, straying off topic now. I feel.
But I mean, I think when you look at it with today's lens, suddenly that photo is actually not that cool anymore that way.
Yeah.
Because it is actually someone just coercing a woman in the street.
You can't judge history in today's lens.
Yeah, no, you can't.
Like today Mahatma Gandhi is seen as a villain in most countries because of one or two comments he gave in 1880s about life. You can't.
No, but I'm just saying that it is a reflection of sometimes the liberty taken by soldiers, right? It kind of goes into that way. Again, that's not what we had discussed.
Yes.
But photography is interesting that it's captured that way. But
no, but like I quite honestly, that picture is definitely iconic because it just I think not shows joy for the soldier. Of course, like keeping the part aside where it was coerced.
Yeah.
And obviously we don't endorse that.
Yeah.
But
it was
just
6 years
euphoria.
of hardcore warfare which the whole world went through. And that was the day we said we can party now. We can actually smile. That's good. Okay, going on to the next photo. This is the Nuremberg rally, which in 1938, this is where Hitler was giving one of his speeches. Why I like this photo so much is the fact that it's showing apparently 200,000 Germans showed up for this speech, which is a lot for that country as well. Yeah. And the order they maintain. So it's just trying, in a way, showing that the amount of hysteria for this particular individual, Hitler and this Nazi party, but also the order the Germans maintain in the violent ranks over there. There's a lot of mass.
So these are not. This is not an army. This is just a bunch of
people. These are regular people,
and they are.
Yeah, this is not army. This is not army. This is not army. So that's the thing. Okay, moving on. This is a major, big,
of course,
historic photo. Can you tell us a little bit about this? Shiraz, can you tell us a little bit about this?
About the
why me? I'm nowhere close to launching any atomic bombs on anybody. But yeah, of course, it was one of the most iconic moments in history where such a vast I think such a big bomb was ever unleashed, and it hasn't been done since. On
It's the Hiroshima and Nagasaki,
Nagasaki,
bombs being dropped over there. I think hundreds and thousands of people were killed instantly.
I don't think it was the hundreds and thousands of people. Yes, they were killed, and but the after effects, the aftermath of what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, the Japanese are still seeing some
Radiation
repercussions still
Yeah.
after what 70 years. And that's insane. So that just tells you how
And you know the
troublesome that is.
The craziest part is this was an atomic bomb,
Yeah.
which was very, very new back then. Today's nuclear weapons are so much more stronger and so much more powerful that they can really annihilate. There's a bomb called the Tsar Bomba from
which I read
Russia.
about. Yes.
And that bomb can apparently kill millions of people. Can annihilate
It's like 20
Delhi in one
times
drop.
as powerful.
Yeah, but
as
like not
something,
only
but-
Delhi, but like the nuclear winter after that will not
yes.
let anything survive. Not
Exactly.
only in Delhi, but until like the longest. I think it may even come till Hyderabad. Like you never know. Whole life.
Basically, even if India and Pakistan have a nuclear fallout, it's called, I think, nuclear fallout.
correct.
The whole world gets affected because that radiation goes up in the air and it just spreads to
Over
the
time,
it can kill agricultural crops all the way to North America, and that's the dangerous part. That like Russia and USA, they almost dropped bombs on each other. We're very, very close to dropping bombs. And that would have been the end of humanity. And this is what it kind of looks like. So that's crazy. Okay. Going on. This is a very iconic photograph.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about this, Kishore?
So this is a photograph. I think they had actually wanted to promote skyscrapers and the whole culture of building skyscrapers at that time. So it's actually, contrary to public belief, it is a staged photograph. It was commissioned.
Marketing.
It is marketing. It was commissioned.
But it's trying to show basically a bunch of construction workers having a casual lunch on like 100 stories high and giving a damn.
So they were quite used to walking across these steel girders without any support. That was a part of their daily life. And they were like, let's make it more interesting. So they're like, let's do this. But it is something that was part of PR.
In a way, like
marketing.
a lot of people look back and say, this is what men used to be like. And today we're all like, oh, I'm offended. And all like that. But this is what real, like, proper people didn't give a damn.
This is what real men used to be.
No, but I look back at this and I'm like, wow, this is actually pretty crazy what we all used to go through.
I'm sorry, I think you've forgotten. It is staged.
It is,
It's a marketing
but
as well.
of course, but still, at the same time, this is
it's
pretty
iconic in a sense because it promoted.
This was
culture.
probably shot in what, the 1930s or 40s? This is where Empire State Building.
I don't think it was particularly Empire State Building, but just some skyscraper was
But
being
today
constructed.
they don't believe in skyscrapers anymore, and they believe like the higher you go, it's just going to make it worse. So they've stopped that one project in Jeddah as well.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, because
Now in the Saudi Kingdom, they're planning to build
Neom.
the
line,
$1
Neom.
trillion project.
Yeah. So
which is I think 200 meters wide by 100 kilometers long.
Yeah.
Ridiculous, right? I don't know. Wow. That's a different path.
That's a different path again. Like everybody's got their own sense of doing things. Because apparently going up really high just makes no sense. Because the Burj Khalifa, the top 40 floors are not occupied.
Oh really?
Yeah.
You can't.
Why so?
It sways.
It sways.
Oh wow! So you can't stay in that.
No, it's after a certain point, it just makes no sense. It's just like who's got the biggest.
So physics basically.
Yeah. So it's.
Oh, I don't know. Interesting.
Yeah.
But I think the point was like New York was one of those few places which kind of glorified the art of skyscrapers.
Yeah.
At a
Because
very
no one else
early
was
age.
even taking
Yeah.
because in order to have a skyscraper you need elevators, and only
Yeah.
when elevators became possible, skyscrapers became
Correct.
possible.
Yeah.
So, but and it took a lot of a lot of people died in building one of these buildings as well. So
100%.
it's not a easy
So
job.
I think health and safety is definitely prioritized these days compared to that. So
Yeah.
it's okay if you're not a man, but health and safety is important.
It's good. No, it's
Like
very
with this-
important that you are a man.
Like with this upcoming Qatar World Cup, apparently in the thousands we have seen construction workers.
A lot of
dying
people are
and
boycotting
staying-
the World Cup as it becomes that, right? So
it's terrible. I don't know how firstly that Qatar getting the World Cup is actually quite a controversy in itself. Don't want to get into that, but like it just these countries just to have that. I think that tourism boost or whatever they want to call
put
it.
themselves on the map.
Put themselves on the map, whatever it is. There's so many human lives are lost in this pursuit of being on the map.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and it's been happening, I think, throughout history, not just today, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Over the years.
That's the pursuit of Yeah.
Yeah. All right. This one is a very interesting photograph.
Yeah, so this is a photograph of Goebbels.
Joseph Goebbels. Can you tell
so,
who he was?
so he's like the right hand man to Hitler, and I think after Hitler.
He was the Minister of Propaganda.
After Hitler died, I think he was appointed as for a temporary
For that temporary.
for a very short period of
but
time.
He actually he committed suicide shortly.
Shortly after he committed suicide as well.
Yeah.
Yes, but I think this photograph is iconic. So I think this is a series of portraits of Goebbels, which are being shot by a photographer, and he was very happy. And then suddenly, someone whispers to him that the photographer is Jewish. And his face changes like an instant. That's what he sees. Just like this look of hate is called.
Yeah.
And he just looks at the photographer. And if you see his hand as well gripping the chair, I think just not him.
Yeah.
He just goes into this weird body language and he's like,
Wow.
I want to kill this guy.
If you see the movie Inglourious Bastard, even though it's not factually correct, but when they say we don't want a black person operating, but it's very true because even Jesse Owens, this great runner in the 1936 Berlin Olympics, and so the Nazis used to always keep on saying that, the Aryan race is always superior. And Jesse Owens is a black American, goes and wins 5 gold medals, and Hitler has to give him the gold medal. And it's just completely contrary to whatever he was
believes in.
preaching.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. This is an iconic photo. This is
Tank Man in Tiananmen Square in
This
China.
is banned in China.
Yeah, you can't find it
If
on
you're
Google.
watching this in China, you can't see this. Unfortunately.
Why not?
Because they don't want people to know about this incident, about one man standing up to a line of tanks.
Yes.
So basically, for anyone who wants to know the backstory of this, there was a democracy protest in the 1989.
89 this is,
89. And a lot of students were demanding democracy to come in. And basically what happened was the Chinese government shut down all media and everything. And they just shot down over 10 to 18,000 of its civilians in one day. And so then the next day they were getting tanks around, and this one particular citizen who was just going around shopping to pick up the basic
bags,
he sees these tanks coming, he stops them, and he knows he can get killed right there. But it was just that sheer defiance from a Chinese individual saying no, and later he climbs on top of one of them.
He does climb on. There's a video as well of it. He does climb and he tries to go to the side, and it's a very interesting.
He's probably killed after that.
And someone comes and takes him away on a bicycle, but then nobody knows what happened after that. So he's never been identified as who the guy is.
Yeah, but this image is used on a lot of shirts and a lot of memorabilia as well, because it's a way of saying one individual, you have to stand up. You can't just keep on waiting, because today there's even China is still not democratic at all, and there's still there are a lot of horrific human rights violations happening there. And
they still cover it up.
They still cover it up heavily, and everyone's very afraid. Citizens living outside of China are still afraid of talking anything bad about China, because they just never know. They're afraid of their phones catching it. And but of course, revolution starts with that one person. And that is definitely showcased over here. Hopefully.
I think the story about the photographer, this was shot by about 4 or 5 different photographers.
How did it come out though?
That's the story. So there's there's a hotel I think they were staying in. They all shot it from the hotel windows. They were in different rooms with different lenses. You have this one was shot by Stuart Franklin.
Right.
Who shot the image, and I think the Chinese also saw that people were shooting, so they were rushing up to go and capture him in his room. So he took the roll out of the camera, he put it in a plastic bag, and he hid it in the toilet water tank.
Oh, right.
And then he put another roll of film in his camera. When they came, they took out the roll of film. They said, "This is gone."
Yeah.
And then he smuggled that film roll out after he left from the toilet tank, and then he got out in the public. So it's quite a story.
Crazy. Because the best part is this person probably doesn't even know that they were photographers.
Of course.
It was just a moment of I am pissed
Defiance,
off.
Yeah.
And he didn't care about media or recognition or anything. It was just him expressing himself, and it's iconic, very iconic photo. This is an award-winning photograph, very sad photograph.
Yes, so it's a Pulitzer Prize-winning award by this photographer called Kevin Carter. He was a part of this group of photographers in South Africa called the Bang Bang Club. There's also a movie about them. So there was this photojournalist between 1990 to 94 roughly. They wanted to capture and show life in Africa and kind of really show the outer world what was happening. So he captured this photo, I think it's 92 or 93, and then so this is one of those times where it's a child who's crawling to go to a UN food camp, I believe, and the story is that the vulture is waiting for the child to die so he can eat it. So at this point, a lot of people questioned the ethics of it. They said, why don't you help the child? But they're all photojournalists, they're all instructed not to touch people or help people. Just come and view the situation and leave it. But then I think he won the award, but then he was so traumatized. He killed himself after that.
Wow. He killed himself?
He did. He committed suicide, Kevin Carter.
That's insane.
Oh my God.
He was very young. He was about 33 or 34 when he killed.
That's so sad though.
So he was, he was so traumatized by the fact that he could not do anything to help the child. And he was publicly, shamed. And even though he won the award for bringing attention to it, he couldn't live with himself for it. So
yeah, because I'll tell you, these sort of photographs, they're actually very important rather than just helping this one individual child.
Yes, it is.
If this image goes viral, even before social media kind of started, this went viral, people's attention, they feel bad, they want to donate, they want to do something, they want to help. And these sort of photographs are very, very important to raise awareness.
Correct.
Without these photographs, if we just read an article saying 2 million dead in Ethiopia.
It's a number,
okay,
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
It doesn't
yeah,
matter.
yeah,
But when
yeah.
you see this, you see that human beings as a species, we are not
ignoring,
we are not reached that level where animals can prey on us. That's a failure of humanity.
Yeah. I think definitely made a lot of change. That photograph did have a lot of impact globally.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
And it's difficult to see. Photography should not always be pleasant. This is a difficult thing to watch.
truth. It's the truth.
It's the truth.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Very, very riveting stuff. Moving on, it might look like nothing, but if you zoom in slowly, and which we will, we zoom in, this is the Earth.
Yeah.
This tiny little blue dot is the
This is
Earth.
called the pale blue dot. It's
Yeah.
shot by Voyager 1.
Yeah, Voyager 1 is the
I think it's the
NASA
farthest. Yeah,
satellite.
today it's the farthest man-made object away from
Yeah.
the globe, right? So
Yeah.
I think at the time,
How far was it when it was shot? Like,
I think it crossed Jupiter. I think at
Jupiter,
this point. Yeah,
wow.
yeah. I think, and they didn't plan to take this photograph.
Yeah.
But Carl Sagan said, "Hey, can we just do this one photo?" And he
Wow.
instructed her to turn back
wow.
and take this photograph. So it was a deliberate choice by him at that point. So I mean, you couldn't call him the photographer, but I think he was the photographer because he initiated that moment to happen. And I think when you see that photo, you just realize how small we are at times. And I think
Exactly.
it's,
Yeah. In the grand scheme of things,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
nothing. Yeah.
Do you have these moments sometimes where you're like, what are we? Where are we?
all the time. I think all of us will have that as
Yeah,
in
of
life.
course.
Right?
I
I think
mean,
yeah,
irrelevant
it's
to the photographer, I think it's a life-changing moment.
It just gets to me because we are all sitting and fighting over you didn't call me for this party.
You were just about to say, right? You don't call him for the wedding. We're not-
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
so we're sitting here and competing and fighting and everything, but we're not. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it means nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how big we
Like
are.
sometimes it happens to me and I'm up in the plane and I'm reaching Hyderabad and I'm like, that's Hyderabad and all the people and their problems and drama and all. But actually it really doesn't matter because we are just surrounded by nothingness.
yeah.
Absolute nothingness and we have no idea where we are. Slowly we are getting some sort of an understanding that we're probably in a simulation. But okay. Of course, this is on the man who's making our oil prices go up.
This is a very interesting portrait of Putin because Putin doesn't pose for photos.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane.
He doesn't. He never does. So this is a photographer, Platon, and he had gone to photograph Putin for the cover of Time magazine. And he had gone with the editor, and they all gone to Russia. And then Putin's like, "No, I will not pose." And then they said, "No, this man has come all the way."
Yeah.
And that guy was going to tears, saying that he's been waiting for hours, getting all his equipment through security. And then Putin's like, okay. And then okay, fine, we got permission. And then they got this photograph. I think it's one of the only few. I think probably the only one that is a proper pose portrait of Putin.
But quite honestly, if you see that he's gotten all these sanctions on him, and I seriously feel it's all pushed by NATO. They pushed him to an extent where he had to do it, otherwise he was going to go down.
Yeah.
No, I really doubt America was planning to break up Russia or something.
But I mean, I also
break
feel
up
that
Russia. There was a very strategic point, like that's what China is doing to India as well with that highway, where they are trying to gain by the problems that we are having with China as well, is they're trying to gain a tactical advantage over a very, very important highway to get people into that to that remote place where it is the border of India and China. So they want to control that space. So they've come to a tactical advantage. The same thing was with Putin as well. They wanted to NATO wanted to, there's a very important part in Ukraine, which is in the Black Sea, where everywhere else in the winter, the seaports are closed because it's all frozen.
right.
So it's virtually impossible for any kind of trade to happen. This is the only point in the Black Sea when it's winter that the trade route is active.
Because it's not frozen, or
It's not frozen.
Okay.
It's
No,
not
but
frozen.
still, you can work it out by being friendly rather than invading countries and all. But I'll tell you what I kind of think.
I really feel that it's it's all a marketing, it's propaganda, because you always feel that, oh, he's ruined this thing by doing this fight. Yes, I understand, but you should see America has ruined way more countries and way more this thing. Yeah,
and they covered up completely.
They covered it up. Everyone thinks, oh, America. I want to move to the USA now. You know, you don't want to move to Russia. So it's absolute marketing and propaganda. Many countries like the British have conquered and plundered so many countries, including us. But we still all want to go to London.
Of course, like the politics of it is definitely very important. But just talking about the man himself, this guy Putin. We will look back in history and say that he was a very, very decisive figure in our history, because maybe people are saying we are already in World War III.
See, I'll tell you what, like you think that because he started this one thing with Ukraine, like he is so decisive. The only president in the last 6 presidents of the US who didn't start a war was Donald Trump.
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
So we don't ever speak about those.
Exactly.
Yeah, we never speak about that. Like they have fought so many wars. They have invaded so many countries. But why is Putin in the bag?
So US meddling in other countries was not for occupying them. It was always to get certain person put inside to help them economically, which is there. This is more like, I want to change the world map. I want this to come in and other countries to come in, which will cause a lot of...
So this logic is...
I'm not supporting any of
I killed you because you were troubling your brother. But Putin killed me because I killed you because I want your house. So, but the fact is that you killed somebody.
Yeah,
I mean, that's something that you cannot take
away. What they're doing is, a little bit more intense, though.
And even think about like the invasion of Iraq and all was built on a bed of lies.
Yeah.
I mean, there was...
Iraq, Libya...
Everyone knows those are not facts anymore.
Not Morocco, Syria.
Yeah.
You know, so it's
all
pretty insane.
Built on whatever.
So I really don't believe that, like, you know, there's one person who's responsible. Geopolitics is very, very difficult.
Complex,
Okay. Venezuela. I don't know.
Okay, this is a very important photo. It's a lot of people might know. It's the Afghan Girl.
Yes.
Yes.
Her name is Sharbat Gula.
Okay.
And I think Steve McCurry shot her when she was very young. And
this was during the Soviet-Russian war
in Afghanistan.
Yes. Yes.
And I think it's color-wise, it's such an iconic image in terms of
her eyes basically takes this entire
and the background,
photo.
and there's multiple things. It's a phenomenal photograph, and I think. She didn't know how famous she was until they found her
National
back in 2002.
Geographic did a whole thing to find her. They found her in Pakistan later.
So in 2002 they found her back.
They did find her,
and then
they found her.
But she was much older then.
She's much older, of course. And plumpy as well.
No, it was about 20 years apart when they found her.
20 years apart.
Yeah, 20 years apart. So they found her in 2002.
Yeah.
And then again they made a portrait of her. There's a documentary about
was it the actual person? Are you sure?
They did iris
recognition.
And they also talked. She remembers the story, who was there and all. There was
correct.
So it's not like she got a cash prize or something. But the thing is,
I'm sure she got some cash prize.
No, nothing. She got a cooker or something for afterwards. That's about it.
Surya cookers.
But I'll tell you, the thing is, her eyes basically it somehow resonates amongst people when they see this image. It caused National Geographic made a whole 2-hour long documentary about this photograph.
Just anger, right? Like you can just. That's what.
It's a mix. It's like a Mona Lisa, like a modern Mona Lisa.
Yeah, it is.
She's not smiling for sure, but her eyes is definitely like.
So what do you see when you see the image? Like what do you see?
It's basically a sense of despair. You're a little bit lost and a little bit of. But you're holding on to yourself, but you're in pain. You're definitely in pain.
Yeah.
There's definite fear as well. So that definitely was a very strong, and that just shows, because the same photographer, he took much more gruesome photos of different things which happened in Afghanistan. Someone's bleeding from the head and this, that. But none of them got attention as much as this photo.
Of course. I mean, like, you never know what resonates with.
And I think the other part is also,
and like, we don't pay attention. Like, her shirt is torn here and all like that. So it's also giving an expression.
Context.
To what she's going through. She's not from a rich family for sure. You can see that.
I think one other thing I'll just add is, like, so after that, recently, I think in 2021, she was in Afghanistan, and then when they were invading, they wanted to find her. Then they evacuated her to Italy. Because she's a person of interest. Because she's so famous there. Yeah. So she lives in Italy now. Last year.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And Steve McCurry also, I think he funded some amount of money to help her and all that stuff.
Cash payout.
It took long enough, but
Okay, and the last one, of course, the guy who's plundered India, but everywhere outside of India, he's seen as a god. Even in India, a lot of people say, "Oh, Winston Churchill went here," or no. But yes, Winston Churchill.
there's a famous of Winston Churchill by his man called Yusuf Kash, and I think Winston Churchill is scowling because Yusuf took away his cigar. That's the reason. So he was smoking, and then he's like,
He was
no.
addicted to cigars.
He was, and then the photographer said, "No, I don't want you with a cigar. Can I take it away?" And then he took it away, and he's like, "Oh," and that's when he captured his
And
image.
he's pissed off.
So that's quite important. That scowl comes because he was deprived of his
cigar.
nicotine. Yeah.
Yeah. But of course, a very, very decisive character.
That tells you so much about the British, right? Like, like they have, I think, like, taken over half of the world. It was the biggest empire to ever
Sun never
survive.
set on the British Empire.
Yeah.
Well, but still, we all watch the coronations. We also
We watch The Crown on Netflix.
We watch The Crown on Netflix. We mourn when they pass away. So I think it's somewhere ingrained also in us. It's come through such a tough channel, but people don't consider it to be such a tough channel. I am a complete opposer of it. Like I get very annoyed. Like
I know, like me and Shiraz once had an argument when Prince Philip died.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And he's like, "Screw this guy." I'm like, "Well, he died."
No, that's not what I said. I said I think people should stop posting about this guy because it really represents a time where India was kind of
But the reality is, I'll tell you, the crown lost power to the state in the 1300s and then properly in the 1850s. So all these other people, they are just there for decoration. Queen Elizabeth would have had no power whatsoever and, let's do this, let's do that. They really lost all the power. It was mainly the politicians back then, and it was economics at the end. Hey, these Indians are ready to be conquered. Let's conquer them. Let's get rich off it.
I know, I admire the attitude of capitalism there. But the thing is that like with this thing, like India had so many famines. We have as a
Structured famines.
Structured famines, exactly. So 70 years ago we got our independence, and we've achieved so much from where we were in 1947. But what I see is that, like, just imagine where USA was when 70 years into their independence. They were having civil wars, and it was painful. So we've gathered ourselves as a country much better. And I also feel that we should, like you said, history. We should never forget who has.
But I'll tell you, while we're just talking about this photograph of Winston Churchill, a lot of people, even in our generation, don't know how bad Winston Churchill was. During the World War II. There was a shortage of food for certain soldiers around. So thus Winston Churchill demanded, and there was a famine happening in Bengal, but we still had decent amount of food stock to make sure it's controlled. Winston Churchill diverted the food grains from Bengal all the way to the war effort, and they said, "No, you can get it from somewhere else. They're going to die.
Yeah.
They're part of your empire." And he just very nonchalantly said, a white man is worth 20 brown men. They don't matter to me. And over
something like that.
3 million people died in that famine. It's one of the worst famines. It's a famine of 1942, 43, like that.
And in the structure of the Indian news media currently, we're currently fighting that the Mughals have plundered us and broken this and broken that, and conveniently forgotten the British. 350 years of the British plundering and killing millions and millions of people. Nobody talks about that. So, and we all watched The Crown. We all watched the coronation, the
royal weddings,
the weddings.
But
it bothers me.
Kishor, to wrap this episode up, just to understand that photography, what sort of advice would you give to someone who wants to make this a career?
I think you really want to invest time into discovering what you like as a person and shoot that. So rather than shooting what everyone else likes, it's important to look at yourself and the stories that you want to tell. And that can be in your gully, in your house, wherever you are. And you can use any device around you to shoot. But just open up your eyes and look at the world from the perspective of a storyteller, and then use your camera or phone as a device to tell that story.
Okay. And does it make sense lucrative, like financially, and how does one become a photographer, basically?
Well, I think for me, you start, at least with weddings, I start a wedding with a friend, and eventually someone else asks you, and then you build up your career over a while. But I think today being a photographer is much more than just shooting photos. It requires a lot of other skill sets. It's almost like running a small business. You've got to maintain a social media presence. You've got to shoot. You've got to edit. You've got to negotiate this.
Like everything, like running the small enterprise or
Exactly.
the big
Exactly,
enterprise or
yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
I think I spent the least amount of my time actually taking photos.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kishore.
My
Learned
pleasure.
a lot.
Thanks so much.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
for
so much for
being
your
here.
time, guys.